Welcome to Thriller Recaps. Today, I am explaining the movie, Shin Godzilla, explaining every scene as it happens. Watch till the end, and please like, share, and subscribe if you enjoy this. A pleasure boat was found drifting on the sea with no one aboard, so sea officers were sent to investigate. As they checked the boat, a sudden sea eruption occurred, and a red downpour started within a tunnel, causing chaos and collisions. Rescue teams were dispatched to the tunnel to evacuate people and warn others to stay away from the area. The sea was put under close watch, and an emergency meeting was called with the Prime Minister to discuss the situation. During the meeting, the board speculated that the disturbance might be an underwater volcano or a nuclear submarine, but they ruled those out. Yaguchi suggested it could be a massive creature living on the seafloor, pointing to images circulating online. However, the board dismissed his idea, saying it was impossible for a creature to survive at such deep sea temperatures. They decided to tell the public it was likely a volcano or thermal vent. As they moved to the press room, one board member warned Yaguchi to follow their story to avoid trouble. Yet, Yaguchi mentioned the creature theory during the public address, which the board quickly shut down. But then, footage emerged showing the tail of a giant creature rising from the sea, sparking fear. The board began debating whether to capture, chase away, or eliminate the creature, finally deciding to try capturing it alive. The creature started moving away from the sea, causing floods in parts of the town. The board called in 3 experts to advise on the situation, but they weren't helpful. So, they invited an environmentalist, who reviewed the footage and noted that the creature had legs and could potentially come on land. A board member mentioned that one expert had said the creature's fin legs might not support its weight on land, possibly causing it to collapse, but the environmentalist warned that wasn't certain. The Prime Minister planned to address the public to reassure them, but Akasaka advised that he should only speak based on facts. The Prime Minister assured everyone that the creature wouldn't be able to move if it reached land. However, before his speech ended, the creature had already come ashore, destroying everything in its path and releasing red liquid from its gills. In response, the Prime Minister activated emergency disaster control, and the board discussed exterminating the creature. They first needed to evacuate the area, so the rescue teams went out. The creature moved at 13 kilometers per hour, tearing down buildings, and it was quickly approaching Tokyo. The board recommended mobilizing the self-defense forces to stop it before it caused more damage. The joint forces were mobilized, marking Japan's first military action since World War II. The plan was to exterminate the creature using military helicopters once the area had been fully evacuated. After successfully evacuating the people, the creature stood on 2 legs and transformed into something even larger. The Prime Minister ordered them to open fire, but when they spotted some civilians still leaving the area, he quickly called off the attack. The creature then moved aggressively toward Tokyo Bay, and they lost sight of it. The next day, there was still no sign of it, but scientists from various countries arrived to help identify the creature. Nations pledged support, and aid workers were sent to assist. The damage was assessed, revealing 100 casualties. The search for the creature expanded, with an attack team stationed at every shore, as they were uncertain where it might reappear next. A response team was created at the Prime Minister's residence, with Yaguchi appointed as bureau chief. He assembled a group of researchers, academics, and unconventional thinkers to study the creature. They quickly discovered that the creature's energy source was nuclear fission, and the news spread fast. A sample of the fluid the creature secreted was sent to U.S. scientists for analysis, though some of it burned due to its strong odor. Meanwhile, radiation levels in Yokosuka rose rapidly, even though there was no leak. Yaguchi and his team suspected the creature was nearby and sought the Prime Minister's approval for an evacuation. And Patterson, the U.S. President's assistant deputy chief, requested a meeting with Yaguchi after Akasaka rejected her proposal. She asked him to find Goro Maki, a former professor who had predicted the creature's arrival years ago, in exchange for all the information they had on the creature. During their next meeting, Yaguchi declared Goro missing and showed in his abandoned boat, found just before the sea eruption. Goro's final message, written on a piece of paper in the boat, read, "Now do as you please, I did the same," and revealed that Goro had named the creature Godzilla. In Goro's hometown of Odo Island, Gojira meant gods incarnate, and the creature became known by that name in Japan. Yaguchi's team later discovered that the creature had been feeding on unregulated radioactive waste dumped on the seafloor, and informed the team that, based on the Department of Energy's (DOE) findings, requests had been sent to institutions to uncover what was in the containers dumped at sea. Goro Maki, part of one such team, believed that Gojira was a marine creature surrounded by radioactive material. Rather than harming it, the radiation allowed Gojira to evolve and adapt to its environment, which explained how it evolved when it came ashore, and provided Goro's research to assist the team. When Yaguchi asked if the US wanted Gojira alive or dead, and replied that only the president could decide. Akasaka discovered that the gamma rays emitted from Gojira matched no known elements, harboring new ones unknown to science. This explained the DOE's interest. Yaguchi's team found that Gojira had 8 times the genetic information of a human and was the most evolved creature on the planet, capable of self-mutation. They theorized that Gojira returned to Tokyo Bay to cool off since its body functioned like a nuclear reactor, using its fins as cooling vents and its blood as a cooling system. The team suggested coagulating its blood to stop the cooling, shutting down the reactor. With the Prime Minister's approval, the Health Ministry provided the resources needed for the plan. The team worked day and night, while Gojira re-emerged in Sagami Bay, now in its 4th form, walking on 2 legs and nearly twice its original size. The civilians were evacuated as Gojira moved, destroying everything in its path. It was projected to reach Tokyo in 3 hours, and the defense forces prepared to protect the metro areas at all costs. The board decided to attack the creature with the Joint Defense Force, as Yaguchi's plan was not yet ready. The Prime Minister approved the assault, and the defense force began firing at the creature from helicopters. However, even 16,000 rounds of machine gunfire had no effect. The Prime Minister then authorized missile strikes. Despite several rounds of missiles, the creature remained unharmed. They shifted their attack to its thigh using tank fire, which slowed its movement, so they continued the assault. Gojira turned toward the Tama River, prompting the defense forces to launch an aerial bombardment. Bombs were dropped, and the creature changed direction, heading northwest, much to the board's relief. A second wave of bombs was deployed, destroying a bridge. The falling debris damaged several tanks before the team could retreat. As Gojira crossed into Tokyo, the attack team reported they were out of ammunition, with 3 tanks damaged and 2 crippled. An officer suggested continuing the assault, but the evacuation of civilians in the area was not yet complete, forcing the operation to be paused. That night, Gojira was spotted entering Meguro Ward. A board member suggested petitioning for U.S. military aid. They soon discovered stealth bombers were already en route, and Akasaka left to formally request cooperation from the U.S. and meet with the ambassador. Gojira began moving toward the town, causing power shortages wherever it went. The board advised the Prime Minister to evacuate to a safer location, as they could not predict the outcome of the U.S. military aid. After much persuasion, the Prime Minister agreed. Helicopters were prepared to transport the Prime Minister and his board, while Yaguchi's team had to leave by road. They packed their equipment and left, but soon got stuck in traffic and had to abandon their vehicles. They received news that the U.S. military had started the attack earlier than expected. When the first bombs hit Gojira's back, it started bleeding, and the Prime Minister waited to see the effects. Yaguchi's team took shelter in a nearby building. Suddenly, the glowing wound on Gojira's back erupted, and it unleashed radiation from its mouth, burning everything in its path. Tragically, the Prime Minister's helicopter was hit by the radiation, crashing into the ground. The next morning, Yaguchi asked about the creature's status from their new base. He was informed that Gojira had become inactive near Tokyo Station, but its radiation had contaminated the rivers and affected areas. News soon arrived that the Prime Minister and his board had been confirmed dead. Satomi, the Minister of Agriculture, was appointed as the new acting Prime Minister, though many doubted he was the right choice. However, his seniority earned him the position. Akasaka survived because he had been out of town, and was made the Chief Cabinet Secretary. Yaguchi's team returned and got back to work, collaborating with private companies to create 24 different blood coagulants, hoping one would work against Gojira. Samples from the creature were sent to labs for further research, and the radiation levels from Gojira remained steady while it slept. And arranged a meeting with the acting Prime Minister, informing him that China and Russia were pushing to take control of Gojira from Japan and hand it over to international authorities, with many countries supporting the move. However, the U.S. wanted to co-manage the situation with Japan. A U.S.-Japan research coalition was formed, and they discovered that Gojira had a built-in phased array radar, allowing it to detect and intercept threats. They believed the creature was capable of global domination, and revealed that the U.S. Defense Secretary wanted to use a nuclear missile, 70 times stronger than the strongest bomb, against Gojira. Though the board believed this was too extreme, the acting Prime Minister agreed, asking for full authority to authorize the strike. Akasaka questioned the decision, concerned about the devastation it could bring to Tokyo, but there seemed to be no other option. Akasaka informed Yaguchi that Godzilla would soon fall under UN control, and Japan would become a tributary state after the war. Yaguchi responded, saying his team was close to finalizing their plan. Akasaka, however, expressed doubts, adding that while a nuclear strike would surely defeat the creature, international funding would help Japan rebuild afterward. Yuguchi relayed the news to his team, who feared that Godzilla might be immortal. He urged them to use the remaining time before the UN intervened to complete their freezing plan. The team's biggest challenge was producing enough coagulant, 672 kiloliters, to freeze all of Godzilla's blood. They began contacting multiple labs to speed up production. Meanwhile, the US gave Japan 2 weeks to evacuate its citizens, starting the countdown, even though officials complained it was too short for such a large-scale operation. The man searching for Goro discovered that Goro had been trying to neutralize radioactive materials after losing his wife to them. The team struggled to understand his work, but when they folded his charts into origami, they uncovered a molecular formula for converting the elements in Godzilla's body. They learned that Godzilla was a mixotroph, with an organ that transformed decaying heat into energy, making it potentially indestructible, casting doubt on their freezing plan. The team realized they needed to increase their confidence by running tests and analyzing the entire chart, so they asked MEXT for global connections, and MEXT agreed to help. Results from Goro's study showed that an extremophile configuration inhibits cell membrane activity, confirming that their blood coagulation plan would still work. They presented their findings to the Prime Minister, pleading for a chance to save the country. The Prime Minister approved their mission. The military prepared for the coagulant insertion, but the production needed 3 more days, and the US explosion plan was set for 2 days. They reached out to France for help delaying the explosion. France signed a petition, but China and Russia opposed it, and the US remained silent. And told her father that scientists were hopeful the freeze plan would work, but he warned her that failure could affect her political career and the Patterson family name. And then created a joint strategy to supply the team with everything they needed. If their plan failed, the US would step in with explosives. As the coagulants were delivered, Yuguchi, despite being advised to stay on the sidelines, chose to join the lead team. He warned them that the mission was dangerous, and not everyone was guaranteed to return. Then, the operation began. 2 train bombs were released towards Godzilla, and when they collided, they caused an explosion that woke the creature. The U.S. military quickly deployed aerial explosives, and Godzilla responded by discharging photons from its dorsal fins, burning up the drones as expected. They continued their assault to keep Godzilla releasing energy until it was spent. Despite the increasing radiation levels, they kept sending drones until the flames of its radiation finally extinguished. Next, they began stationary blasting around Godzilla, which was unable to defend itself as piles of debris fell upon it. With the radiation levels at expected levels, they launched a targeted blast, causing even more buildings to collapse on Godzilla. They then deployed a special crane platoon to inject coagulant directly into its mouth. When the injection reached 30%, Godzilla released a burst of radiation, destroying the trucks used for the injection, but it was also showing signs of being affected as its movements slowed. The team launched more train bombs, and after the impact, Godzilla fell. The second and third platoons rolled out to continue the coagulant injection until it reached 100%. Godzilla's skin began to stiffen, yet it stood up again, prompting the team to evacuate. Suddenly, Godzilla froze, with the temperature around its chest dropping to -196 degrees, and it completely shut down. The mission was a success. Later, they discovered that Godzilla's new isotope had a half-life of 20 days and would be gone in 2 to 3 years, which was good news. While Japan began rebuilding, the nuclear explosion mission remained on standby in case Godzilla awoke again. Please like, share, and subscribe.